Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Richest Men in Town podcast. I'm Mike Freeman, and along with my good friend and co-host Tyler Gould, we're excited to welcome you to our little podcast project. Tyler and I are just a couple of middle-aged husbands and dads driven to live our best lives. We want to be better every day, so here we'll be sitting down with great people. Not famous people, but great people that we admire, to learn their secret to living the rich life. Probably not the rich life you're thinking of. Our guests come in humbled and surprised at the invitation and hopefully leave feeling proud and grateful, realizing just how good they really have it. So pull up a chair, stay a while, and raise a glass with us as we toast our guests to the richest men in town.
Some of them I've met once or twice, and I'm just learning more and more. And it was so much fun tonight.
Yeah, we didn't quite know what to call it. I think the invitation that went out was an RMIT reunion, but these guys had never met one another, right? I mean,
yeah.
They're either friends of ours, friends of yours, friends of mine, and I think that our weekly listener might find this a little bit surprising, but we usually have a plan for what we're going to do each episode,
right?
And we actually have a system. It may not look like it, may not sound like it. But this week, we threw that system out, right? The guys didn't necessarily even know what was going to be coming at them. We did this for a lot of different reasons. I mean, we did this episode in this format for a lot of reasons. Number one, just straight up love and respect for each and every one of our guests.
Absolutely.
And there were some that weren't able to make it tonight, right? And we still love them, but tonight was about paying kind of, just tribute and recognizing the vulnerability, the courage of stepping on the show, for showing up the way that they showed up, and then just getting everybody in the room together.
Yeah,
right?
that was a
Virtually.
blast. And I think too, one of the things that we always say after every episode with that we've had with anybody is that, man, we could have spent more time with those guys and learned some more. And tonight, we got together with them. We laughed some. I got a little teary. I'll admit it a couple times.
Yeah, there were a couple moments.
So it was great because we got it all back together, and I learned new things with this group of guys that I hadn't picked up in the first time we talked to them. I mean, I just it was a fun night tonight, and it was an experience that. You know what? One of the things I really liked, Mike, is at the end of it, a lot of these guys had never met each other at all, right? So this is the first time they're seeing each other's faces, and we're all in this group talking tonight. And at the end of it, they talked about how they had love for each other, and I thought, man, that's what this is. That's what this is about.
Yeah, and we have a unique and. We have an awesome position that they don't have. Tonight, we were able to share a little bit of the feedback we get from listeners. They shared also some of the input and some of the things that people in their lives shared as a result of their interview. But when an episode gets dropped on the Richest Men in Town, we have people sharing on Facebook and Instagram and texting us and saying, "Oh my goodness, man, that guy's story or that guy's journey," or right. And that lives in isolation because it just lives between us. And so tonight, getting everybody in the room, we were able to say, "Hey, when you spoke about that thing, man, that lit a lot of people up and inspired them, and they reached out to us. Hey, did you know that some of your words were quoted in a funeral for a grandfather that passed away?" So I think that really helped them, and it kind of validated the whole process. I know for me personally, it validated the vision that I have for this project.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. And I think, just to mention some of those guests that weren't here tonight, at some point in time, we'll do this again. We'll have another group of guys on, and we'll have these same kind of discussions. But this is a community. Right. And I think that it extends beyond the guests that we have that come on the show and those listeners that send us those notes about our guests are as much a part of that community as anybody that's been on this show. And I think it's important for for people to know that we recognize that. We have a lot of gratitude for that. And we look forward to the time when we can engage our listeners to become a bigger part of our community.
Well, I would even take it further and put it on wax that we're taking up the responsibility to do something with what's given to us each and every week.
Yeah.
Right. So we're efforting on our part to do more so that more people can access the stories that are shared in this. This thing is a baby, right? We've been doing this for a couple months, but it fills my life with joy. It fills other people with some hope. And I think joy and hope are precious commodities today.
Yeah. And like, I mean, where else are you going to be able to have a conversation about hot dogs and hope in the same episode, right? It doesn't happen all that often.
Well, tonight was a treat. I want to thank those guests that were able to join us tonight. I want to throw a shout out and an invitation to those that were not able to. Again, like Tyler said, we will do that again. Lots to take from tonight. If you are a fan of the program, you're going to love this because it's almost like an all-star game. Right? You get to have your guests back and sharing a little bit more, adding to a little depth from what they shared with us. It was so wonderful to be in the same setting with the guys. I'm grateful for this podcast. I'm grateful for everyone that contributed, and I'm grateful for the work that we will do. This podcast is, you can pick it up anywhere you pick up great podcast action. We are on Apple Podcasts. We're on Spotify. We're on Stitcher, Google Podcasts, you name it. We're there. You can also check us out on our Facebook page and our Instagram. The most important thing about this is to really be true to the gift that's given. Take it into our lives and let it work on us, right? Let's do something with the things that these guys share tonight. And if it's working for you, maybe reach out to somebody who could use it. We all know folks that are struggling. And if we can be brokers of hope and we can share out maybe some messages and some words from these guys, they don't get any better than the guys on the show tonight. So
that's right. Enjoy the party bus, folks. Right? And let's let's do something with what we hear tonight. I've enjoyed it, Mike. It's always fun. Till next time, huh?
Yeah, let's do it again. Group of guys right there.
Well, there
is.
One click of the button, and everyone from the waiting room, welcome to the richest men in town. We would call this a reunion show, but some of you don't know each other. So we're trying to even figure out what this is. Tyler and I feel a little kind of like a matchmaker tonight.
Yeah, it's sort of like the alumni, the richest men in town alumni show, maybe, right?
Yeah.
But hey, we're excited you guys are here, man. Let's.
So Gavin, did we interrupt some dinner? What do you got there?
Yeah,
ice cream. I have Toby and Quinn over at my house. And we're doing like one microphone for all three of us on our laptops.
I like it. I like it.
So this is Tillamook, not Tillamook. This is chocolate peanut butter ice cream. It's a dish.
Ooh, you know what? I've had some of that. Hey Toby, that's your own bowl, right? You're not hitting Gavin's bowl.
Yeah.
we're sharing.
Steven.
Can I have the spoon, please?
Steven, how are you, my friend?
Good. How are you, Tyler?
I'm good. It's good to see you, man.
Yeah. Nice to be here.
Good. I'm glad you're here. And Alan Michael's with us. He decided to join the dinner show down there at the bottom.
Okay.
What's up, guys?
Yeah.
All right. Rajiv's coming.
You ever happy?
Good. Well, this is
Mike.
we'll see how this plays out tonight.
Hey, I gotta say, your hair's looking dapper, young man.
I had to pay a lot of money. Yeah, I finally decided to get a haircut. No, my wife cuts my hair.
Looking good.
I love
Looking
it.
good.
Thank
Well,
you.
hey, let's Mike. Let me say this. We're gonna lay down some ground rules for tonight. All right, and here's the rules. There are no rules. Okay, so we're gonna talk over each other and we'll just have a good time. You know, I mean, I think that for me, I've loved every conversation that Mike and I have been privileged to have with everybody, and we've had some others that aren't going to be here tonight because their shows haven't aired yet. So we want to throw that out there and let them know that we'll miss them tonight. But I'm excited about this, man. You guys, if nothing else, you look good tonight. I don't know how you'll sound, but you look good tonight, you know, so that's a good thing.
That's great when it's an all audio program.
I've been told that I have a face made for radio, you know.
That's look good.
So seriously though, we've been talking about all y'all, and we quote you guys. Your stories have been woven into the stories that we're telling. Stephen Mitchell, I owe you a couple of nickels for several of the things that you dropped, like change your sign. I've been talking to Tyler about doing something like this, and we struggled with the format, right? We struggled with, do we send you guys a little show flow? Do we give you new questions? But in the end, we decided to do nothing, which is it's a great strategy. So
yeah,
we're literally inviting friends, inviting folks that mean a lot to us. We are 18 episodes in, Tyler. Is that right?
Yeah, we are. We have 17 that have aired, and 18 is in the can, right? So yeah, good.
I think
good
it's in the hopper, right? We don't say in the can. That sounds like maybe like garbage or something.
Well, that's film.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
Is that film?
Yeah, it's film in the can. Well, that's the old film.
Thank you, Stephen. Thank you for validating my my terminology.
That was film.
All right.
Well, we'd like to welcome Rajiv as well.
Rajiv!
Hey.
What's up, Rajiv? Good to see you.
Good to see you guys too.
Hey, first things first, Rajiv, how's your mom?
She's doing a lot better today. She had she had somebody come and pray for her, and she's just doing a lot better. So she was I think she just kind of was defeated. She's been fighting stuff for a long time. So her spirits are just a lot higher today. So we're hoping for another good day tomorrow. So
good.
Thanks for asking.
That's awesome. Well, hey, let's Mike, let's start this way. I feel like it's maybe Mike and I have the advantage, right? Because we got to spend time with you guys one-on-one. We got to, listen to what your stories in depth. And I don't know if all of you have had a chance to listen to each other and what your thoughts are there. And we're going to get there, and we're going to put you on the spot. So if I ask if you've listened to Quinn Lowry and you say no, that's going to hurt, man. That's going to sting. All right. But we're going to ask that question. But first of all, let me ask and we'll just, whoever wants to jump in, but I'd like to know what your experience was like on Richest Man in Town and what your thoughts are since you've been on the show, and what your impressions have been.
Hey, I'll start. This is Nick. Hey, it's not really doesn't really have anything to do with my episode. It has to do with like all of this combined, because when you go back and you listen to these, I've listened to all of them I think once, and every single one is so different. And the variety of individuals has been really cool, because, as you listen to these and you think about the lessons that you guys discuss and the experiences, I think it really opens up a lot of thoughts that, for me anyway, I haven't had in a long time, and things that I needed to remember and things that I needed to do better. And I think if you ask my wife, since I've been listening to this podcast, I think I'm probably a little bit more attentive than I was before. So everyone who's on here, thank you.
I appreciate
that. That's a real good comment, Nick. Because after Rajiv, who's a real close friend, and I got to rattle around with him, what he was thinking about, what he was going to be intentional on remembering to bring in, what he might not bring in. And so I had about a month where I rattled around those questions before I ever went on, and the intentionality of going through my head and rethinking those moments, like the drowning of my son and my born again experience, as a result of this show and listening to all of you, I've lived life more intentional, more on it. And as a matter of fact, with our neighbors in our little cul-de-sac of 22 years we've been here, gal on the left, family on across the street, every Saturday we have a fire pit. Well, some of the same questions that you guys asked to me, we bring out there to these neighbors. Oh my gosh, I've lived next to them for, like I said, 22 years, and I am getting to know them so well, way beyond anything I ever dreamed of because of the show.
Wow, that's very cool. That's very cool.
Yeah, I agree. Like, it's crazy how much you feel like you can get to know a person through these episodes. Cause so I've only listened to two, Steven and Rajiv, and I feel like I know you guys like I was on the podcast, and like with Steve singing the song and Rajiv telling his experience of coming to America and things like that. It's like, I feel like I know you guys. Like I don't even know you, but I feel like I know you, and that's pretty cool. For me, it's been like it's a podcast that I can get into and not have to really get into. Like it's a nice casual conversation where some things will pop out and it'll make me think about it, but I don't have to pay attention directly from beginning to end. Like I can come in, conversation's great. My mind may wander somewhere else, but if I come back in, the conversation's still great. And so it's good in that regard because I don't feel like it's too heavy, and there are nuggets along the conversation that I can pull out and take and say, oh, that was good. I like that. And not have to be so deep.
Soothing.
What's that, Nick?
Soothing voices too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right.
You know, I'm curious if you've had people, we've had people, and maybe this is a question for Tyler and I, right? Maybe we can share some stories. I don't know if you've had people hear you and reach out to you, but they reach out to us. Tyler received a text from a friend, and I'm not sure exactly which richest men in town he used, but one of you were quoted at a funeral.
Yeah. He went to the funeral of his grandfather, and he said, I was asked to speak at the funeral of my grandfather, and I quoted a couple of the episodes of Richest Men in Town and some of the things that were discussed in the podcast. And I think like the interesting thing is, and I've received a lot of messages like that. I got a message the other day from a young man that I know. He's in his early 20s, and he said, hey, I'm just reaching out to say hi. And I haven't talked to him since the pandemic, right? I mean, this whole thing where we're shut down. And he said, I've been struggling. I've been struggling being on my own and feeling like I'm isolated. And I've been listening to the richest men in town. And it's he said it's helping him get through this time. And I will tell you this, you guys, like, this is not Mike and Tyler. Like that at the end of the day, I mean, and that's the intentionality of the show, is that it's not Mike and Tyler, it's you guys. And for me, I just love I've loved just sitting back and listening to your stories and seeing myself in your shoes, because as different as we all are and our backgrounds and where we grew up and who we know, and I feel like I'm exactly alike with you, and that's been a great thing. And I think that's what a lot of the people that listen feel as well, is that they know you guys. I had someone drop by my house the other day, and they said, we were sitting in the backyard just talking, and they said, I would love to meet those guys. Like, I feel like I know all of them, right? And just like Alan Michael said, I know Rajiv, I know Steven, and your words have made a big impact for sure on me. But there's a lot of people that would echo that thought.
Yeah, and for the record, we've said before, but I'm going to just lay it straight here. This thing used to be about helping Mike be better and helping Tyler be better. And I think we've said in every one of your episodes, right, that this is a selfish venture. It isn't anymore. The last couple of episodes, I've actually gotten personal with the guests and just said, hey, right now, you're in someone's ear. They're struggling. What would you share? Because you are in someone's ear. If you think about doing the math, Nick, 17 episodes, 2 hours per, that's a lot of content, and that's a lot of the lessons you guys shared, the stories you shared. And people reach out to us and they say, how do you get Nick Anderson to tell that bag of chips story? Right? How do you get the people to share your lives when you're coming from vulnerable places? Right? And I think I just want to tip my hat to you guys, because the way you showed up in your episode, when some of you may know both of us, some of you may only know one of us, but when we reached out to you and said, hey, be a part of this, we really feel like you have something to share. You stepped into maybe a medium that felt weird, an experience that was unlike anything you'd really ever had, and you crushed it. Every one of you crushed it. And I just want to thank you, because it just really has encouraged us to keep going, right? And to keep doing this thing. Many of you may know this thing was something Tyler and I and friends had talked about doing for a long time. And actually, Quinn, Toby, I think it started as a blog, right? We had a conversation about doing a blog, and a long time ago when our kids were little, we each had guest
entries in that blog.
Yeah, the archive's out there somewhere, man.
It is out there. It's online, so it's online's forever somewhere. But I just want to take my hats off to you guys. And the challenge now is, we're not talking about a podcast anymore. We're talking about a community. Tyler and I, when we get together, we're talking about that cul-de-sac that Steven's talking about. How can this thing become a movement where we're actually helping other men that we may not even know, be more intentional about life and try to be better, right? I don't know if you guys saw the Kobe ad, right? Nike came out with a Kobe ad for being better.
Yeah.
And that's the spirit of this podcast. Right? We're just trying to be better. And hopefully the people in our lives see that, right? See us making an effort to make some changes.
How much practice did you guys have together as you're preparing for this? Because there's no doubt you guys riff off of each other so well, and you're both great interviewers, and I think that makes it even better. But about how that came about, because I mean, it's really remarkable, actually.
Well, Nick, zero.
Right. Yeah.
In fact, I would say, let's see. First episode with a guest, Toby, guinea pig number 1. Next was Quinn, guinea pig number 2.
Okay.
Right. And we're just trying to, actually, we say every night, every time we've been with you guys, when you leave, Tyler and I look at each other, almost tears in our eyes. And every night we do this, we say, those questions are inspired. It really is the question, right? Like Stephen was talking about sharing with his neighbors. Ideally, understanding that your life does turn on tiny hinges. Understanding that you've dealt with things, right? And many of you are dealing with things right now. We can go around this Hollywood Squares looking thing, and each of you probably has something on your heart right now that you're dealing with.
And I think too, Mike, that to talk to Nick's question, Mike and I mean, maybe Mike's skilled. I got nothing. I'm bringing nothing to the table. I'll be honest with you. But how it works is you guys. That's how it works. I mean, and it's really about what you bring to the table. I mean, I'm curious in general, right? Whether I'm on the show or I'm not on the show, I'm curious in general. And I feel like everybody has a story, and I feel like everybody's got something to say. And I feel like everybody's been through something that's really heavy, right? And those heavy things is what pushes us to be better when we come out on the other side. And I think hearing you guys talk about your experiences, I mean, honestly, you've all seen the document we send out before the show. It's got, I don't know how many questions are on that document, but there's a list. And maybe in the course of the show, we ask 4. We ask 3 of those, right? because it just takes care of itself with you guys being willing to share. So I would say the secret to this show is you guys. And how do you, my question to you, Nick, would be, and to everybody would be, how do you guys come in and share what you've shared? Because every single one of you shared things that have been super powerful to me. Gavin, you had a thought about that?
Yeah, it's because of you guys, you and Mike. It's just awesome. You know, you invited us to come on the show, and I don't know about the rest of you guys, but I didn't feel like I was, you know, worthy of being interviewed for anything. And you two made me feel like $1 million because you guys just sort of set that tone. You're just, and you know, it actually made me feel really good about, you know, about myself, and maybe I did have something to share or whatever, but you guys putting that out there and being able to set that tone of being able to share some really serious things, you know, that's from you guys leading the way. And so I really appreciate you doing that, because I haven't really dug that deep. I think Stephen was saying that prep time before the show, man, I was digging, like going back through my history books, you know, trying to figure out what was going to be worthwhile and what was, you know, what was the point of this show? What could I share that would actually do something for somebody? And you guys really brought that out. So I appreciate you guys.
Well, you know, the interesting thing, some of you aren't even a fan of the movie upon which we draw our title, right? And I'm not even gonna approach that. We're gonna leave that right there.
That's for an episode when you're not on the air with us and we just talk bad about you. That's that episode.
But
right?
in that moment, right? I say my mouth's bleeding. It's that moment when he's on the bridge and the police officer comes up and he's like, George, and he's like, your mouth's bleeding. And he's like, my mouth's bleeding. And he has this realization that he's alive, and that as bad as it is, he's alive, and it's amazing, and it's a wonderful life. Tyler and I, we look in your eyes and we look for that moment. In that episode, through the period of asking those questions, each and every one of you, we've had that connection where you realize, you know, life's pretty wonderful, right? With everything, with all of the stuff we're carrying around, it's still pretty awesome to be on this side of the dirt, struggling, right? Doing what we're doing. Alan Michael, did you have a thought there?
Yeah. When Gavin was talking about you guys, and like I think we've all emphasized how important it is that the way you guys have allowed us to talk and the questions that you've asked, it reiterated to me that you guys are really intent and good listeners. Like, we're able to talk, and as you guys listen, you listen intently, and I think that draws it out a little bit more. The question is not the premeditated questions. It's the questions that come from you guys just sincerely listening and wanting to know a little bit more about that story, or to digress, or to connect to something. And that's a trait that I don't think a lot of people have this day and age. We don't do enough listening. We do a lot of talking, but not enough listening.
Well, let's be real though, Alan Michael. We have time, right? I don't think in our lives we give it the time. We're busy. The world is noisy, but we have dedicated 2 hours. Yeah. And when you say something, we have the luxury to stop and say, hold on, Quinn, you were cut from a high school music program? Like, I would like to know more about that, right? We have time to dig a little deeper, right? And I think that, man, I wish I had the time to connect with people outside in life like we can connect here, right? Life is noisy, life is busy.
Yeah. Rajiv, I'd be curious to hear your thoughts and your experience on the show, and you know what some of your takeaways were from your time there.
Yes. So you know, apart from just hearing everybody's story, and I completely echo the whole feeling of that. You know, I think I've listened to almost all of them except for like the last 2 or 3 episodes. And I think the way you guys do your interview, I mean, I think it's just so raw and vulnerable that you end up, like, each of the people that are being interviewed. I mean, it just comes out of the, out of the whole process. And then kind of like what Stephen said, I think a lot of times we forget our stories, and I think when things are really, really bad and things are, when you're down in the trench, you forget what you came out of, and I think that's happened to me twice. It happened to me when you guys did the interview and when I was preparing for it, to realize, okay, I have a cool story, and the things that have happened to me by the grace of God, and it was just a very, I remember the night before, I think I listened to somebody's, I've forgotten whose episode it was, and it was just this thing of gratitude, realizing, okay, oh my goodness, this is what I've been through, and this is what, I've come through, and it was just a reminder. I think a lot of times we forget, the positive things, the negative things. So that was really cool. And that happened, when I did the interview. And then I went back and I listened to myself again. And it was, again, I was at a down point, and it lifted my spirits, because, again, it's like, it reminded me again of, of the story that I've had the privilege of. Life is an adventure, and it's this beautiful adventure, and sometimes when you're down, you're digging in the dirt, you forget the beauty of it all, and I think that has been, I think, a cool thing with everybody's stories, that, like I think Mikey was saying, we all have amazing stories, and there's always a beauty in the story. There might, stained glass is a whole bunch of broken glass, but when you end up with this beautiful masterpiece of an art piece, and I think that's kind of the thing about our stories, but I think, and this is not, I don't want to, this is not to, build you guys' heads up, but Mike can tell you guys do have a skill, of bringing, I think somebody had written this on Facebook, that you're able to take the soul out of somebody, and I think don't lose that, because that is something that, is not out there, and that, I think, is the magic in this whole program.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that, Rajiv, because Stephen was so quick in his episode, because you guys jump in and you don't know what you're jumping into. Right? Poor Rajiv has to jump in on a conversation about hot dogs, and I still feel bad about that, brother. Right? But
it has to be discussed. It has to be discussed.
Stephen comes in to miracles, right? And at the ready, like, hey, Stephen, got a miracle story? He's like, boom. Right? And it was like, I even think I said in his episode, man, I don't have something like that. And when I listened to him on my own, how wrong is that? Yeah. Right? Because as I listened, like Rajiv, like you were saying, I had experiences come to my mind of deliverance, of things that should have happened but didn't, by the grace of God. Right? And so, Stephen, you were a great example of how quick you were at the ready to have those things remember. And I don't know if you remember, Stephen, but when I asked you, how quick did life turn back to normal and you forget what happened?
I said it never did.
Never.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, that was powerful.
I love that. I thought it's funny because just thinking about Stephen's comments about miracles, it's forced me to think about all the miracles that happen on a daily basis that I step over and I just pass off as whatever, right? And I've really tried to be more intentional about that, Stephen. So I'm grateful for your quick remembrance of those miracles that have happened in your life, because it's definitely had an impact on me, and I want to be more thoughtful about those things. And I want to pick on Quinn for a second too, okay, Quinn? Because look, I'm a huge Quinn Lowry fan. I'm a huge Quinn Lowry fan.
No offense to everyone, but I'm going to come out and say it. I think Quinn's is Tyler's favorite episode.
And look, I don't have favorites.
We're not supposed to have favorite kids.
Yeah,
but it might just be.
I don't have no favorite, Stephen, but Quinn's my favorite, right? So no.
I can leave now, right?
I'm saying amen to that.
Yeah, it was great.
Amen.
And I think one of the things that Quinn said to us when we first asked Quinn to be on the show, he was Quinn. I believe the word incredulous might sum up your reaction. Like, why in the world would you want me on the show? And you know, you came on the show and you just delivered a story that I thought was so relatable for everybody to hear, right? You talked about some of the hinge moments for you and some of the things that stood out to you. And I'll tell you, when we talked about the discussion we had about comparison, I absolutely loved that discussion with Quinn. My daughter didn't love it, though. We talked about her getting an Audi, and that wasn't going to happen, so she's not very happy about that. But, right, we talked about that on the show. So, Quinn, give me some thoughts from you about your experience on Richest Men in Town.
Well, it's a pretty interesting experience going through that interview process, and really just, like others have mentioned, just kind of trying to collect your thoughts, going through some of the questions, just really kind of focusing on what your thoughts are and how to convey some of your life philosophies amongst other people. And, trying to find relatable experiences that, that others might be going through similar things, and trying to, find the good points from the tough stuff. It was a good experience for me because, like Gavin was kind of saying earlier, it's just that, that whole idea of like just sharing your voice for a little bit, and how often do we talk with people, but we don't really get that deep in with people, it's, our normal day-to-day life often doesn't present those opportunities. So it's an interesting experience going through this interview process and having you guys ask certain questions that make me think about things.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because I think from the outside looking in, right, I would judge my life as very bland. I would judge my life as very bland. And I think that from the outside looking in, right, when you were incredulous about the invite on the show, I mean, from my perspective, I had, and I still have, deep respect for how you live your life and the choices that you've made and how you've reacted to some of the things that you've encountered in your life. And I would say that is true across the board, right? When Stephen tells the story, and Stephen, you talked about the story about the homeless guy in the middle of the road with the sign, right? And I'm telling you, Stephen, I have told that story dozens of times since you were on this show to people, because to me it was so profound, right? And think about, right, Stephen, you said, yeah, I had this experience this one time, and you're talking about this homeless guy, and it changed how I think about what am I projecting, right? What am I asking from people, and what I want people to see from me. And I love that those small things that we may gloss over in our lives and say, yeah, this happened, but it's profound, right? And I think when we share those things, we start to recognize that the depth of those experiences.
And Tyler, let me just add that what you heard on the story, when my wife heard it, and she heard me recall that story because she was at the gas station when I was doing the rally back and forth, she said, oh no, you forgot the best part of the story. And I said, well, what is that? She said, don't you remember how long you were talking to that guy right in the middle of traffic? And I had completely, it just sounds like I said, you got the wrong sign. If you're looking for hamburgers, you got 4,000 of them. Change your sign. Right. She said, you ministered to that guy. I was waiting in the car for you. You didn't even tell him. So anyway, that whole thing is just all relative. But like all of us know, the ability for you to, in the way you react to one another and the way you listen, that makes all the difference. Rajiv was talking to me about a guy on the show. What is it, Rajiv? America's
Got Talent, yeah.
America's Got Talent. So the first guy that ever did poetry, he just blew the folks away on that thing. What was his name? Brandon? Okay, sorry. But anyway, so what happened is I started looking at my poetry. Listen to this. This is what you guys do with Richest Man in Town. In the presence of a searching soul, there is no place I'd rather be than in the presence of a searching soul. It is there that all the answers lie, just within reach of the questions. Thank you for richest man in town. Because without the questions, there's no answers, and without the preparation of being honored by being asked on this show, the status quo remains. You know, I mean, and that's what we have to do with everyone, whether it's somebody that's down in the grocery store or somebody that doesn't want to wear a mask, somebody that, oh man, anyway.
Yeah.
That's
Stephen, that kind of chokes me up a little bit. I think I've even said on the show, every once in a while we need to hang question marks where we have periods.
Yeah.
Right. And we just need to be asking those questions. But Stephen, you bring up a good segue. I'm wondering if your family has heard your episode and if there were any comments. I know that in Tyler's family, Nick Anderson's episode is standard listening required, right?
Required listening.
Standard required listening. Has anyone had any cool experiences with their family listening in on their podcast? Or when you play it, do your kids just go running?
My kids run.
Toby, go ahead.
Yeah.
So we had an experience. So, first things first, this is like the last thing in the world that I want, people like listening to me and it was not kind of my forte to be on an interview like this, but my wife, to my embarrassment, sent out the link to the podcast after it happened, all over Facebook, social media. So, and I didn't think too much about it. Every once in a while, I get a comment from someone here or there that would say, hey, I heard your podcast. It was great, whatever. But there was an experience where one of actually my wife's aunts, who we hadn't seen or talked to in quite a while, and she kind of lost connection. We were really close to her and her family, and we kind of lost connection with her through some, series of unfortunate events. And she said that she saw the link. It was late one night. She's having problems sleeping, and she just decided to listen. And I don't know that there was really anything that I said on there that kind of made her want to reconnect. But I think it was just, hearing hearing some experiences of someone in her family that, she had obviously missed that connection. And so anyway, she reached out to my mother-in-law. She reached out to my wife and to me and just said, hey, it was great to hear you and to hear some of the things that are going on in your life. And hopefully we can get back and see each other and talk to each other again. And it was a good experience. And I don't think there was anything that necessarily I had to say, but I think that's one of the great, blessings of this, of what you guys are doing. This, it does really help. It's helped people connect. I had another friend that did kind of the same thing. I hadn't seen or heard from him in a long time, and he heard it, and he said, hey, I had no idea that you donated that kidney. I had no idea that these things happen in your life. And we're pretty close friends, and or had been. And so it was just a great thing for me to have been able to be a part of this. I'm still seeing some of those blessings that came from it.
Well, I would say to you, Toby, you do have the ultimate trump card. You gave a kidney, for crying out loud. Like nobody else is going to be able to throw that out there. So.
Wait. And played a softball game the night his wife gave birth.
That's very true. He came in. I think he made a diving catch out in right field. So.
I don't remember if there was any discussion about Christmas lights at Toby's, but.
Well,
so I don't know. Really quick, I don't know if you guys journal.
Silence. That's a no.
I'm assuming
Steven does. Okay.
I don't know if anyone's ever thought of this, Tyler. We've kind of talked a little bit about it off the air, but when we joke about digital is forever, what you have shared in your episodes will be part of that legacy, right? When we are gone, you're leaving a record of your life for 2 hours or whatever, sitting down with Tyler and Mike, talking about the experiences that that made you who you were, right? Some of those pivotal moments and some of those choices that you made. And so I hope that number one, I hope you like what you said because it's there for a little while, right? But I hope you find some comfort in knowing that we've all had opportunities to share our faith with other people, but what you have done, 3,500 downloads plus. So you think about the words of faith and the things of testimony that you shared and just how far that will go, right? Toby shared about people reaching out as a result of hearing his voice and hearing things that he said. There could be people that do turn things around because of maybe something that they share. And I'm going to let you in on an internal discussion that Tyler and I have had. We feel an obligation to get better at letting the world know about you guys. We feel like you have given us a gift in your audio, and it is on us to amplify that. And we really do talk internally about hanging a 0 on this thing and getting 35,000 downloads so that people can hear your journeys and that they can make changes, right? Not that you're going to change their life. I've said they changed their life, but man, if we can be of influence and help, we owe it. We owe it to this process. Who knows where this goes, right? But I think that's something that we wanted to let you guys in on because we may be coming back to you, right? Quinn, go ahead.
I was just going to say, you talk about this podcast that's going to be out there forever or whatever, it's kind of an eternal thing now. The one thing that I kind of do hope that comes from this is, at least me for my kids, is that, they may not appreciate everything their dad tells them right now, but I hope that someday that they will stumble back upon this and take a listen and find it at a point of time that it might apply more to their lives, maybe when they have their own kids, and just kind of hear the thoughts of their old man at that point in their lives.
Yeah, that makes me tear up too. On that note, did anybody leave things unsaid? Did anybody hang up off the call and be like, dang it, I need to say this? We'll give you the floor.
Well, I know that when I really took a highlighter and marked all the questions that I actually answered, it was like you had said, Tyler, it was like 4 of them. And I thought, holy snapper, because when Mike told me that it was, no, you told me, Tyler, it was 2 hours, it really did blow my mind. I thought for sure it was like 1 hour. What the heck happened? So that was amazing.
We get that all the time. All the time.
Okay.
How do you talk to people?
The opposite reaction in my house, though. My kids are like, if we've only been talking for an hour, Dad, for crying out loud. Sounds like 2 hours, man.
But I do for the folks that are new to the podcast, I get a lot of feedback on the length, right? Man, it's really long. It's like, you know what? It was like nothing, right? Snap the fingers and we're done. And we could have gone on, right? Alan Michael, we didn't even get to your situation, right? So we had to bring you back. But, it really is important that that's intentional because you're our friends. And I do not want to try to fit what we shared into some 40-minute segment. I think we're going to try to get better at getting some sound bites, right? To get some nuggets out there for people to be able to experience it, even if they don't want to sign up for the full 2 hours. But you're right, Steve. It flew and we didn't even scratch the surface.
Just tell everybody 1.5 times speed.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. I think who was telling me
1.5 is great. At 2, we sound really funny.
So that's my.
Give it up, Rajiv.
Two times. But what's really what's really good about it is when you listen to that 2 times, you have to listen to every word. So it's, when I'm driving, it's like, I'm freaking out, but I have to listen to every word. Otherwise, I listen to stuff and my mind goes floating away, and I can't do that when you listen to something. So it's been a new thing for me, and I've been listening to all kinds of stuff.
Yeah. So knowing that, Rajiv, I said, "Oh, you gotta be kidding! I do 1.5 times. There is no possible way." He said, "Oh no, I do 2 times." But he says, "I'm going to honor you. I think I did you at the regular speed." Oh, gee. Oh, that's special.
On the subject of family listening, I'm a little offended because Tyler gets all the laughs in my car. Like, nothing I say is funny to my kids. Like,
a prophet is never loved in his own land, right? I mean, that's
like,
how it works.
I think I'm like Charlie Brown's teacher, right?
Well, if it's any consolation, my kids think you're pretty hilarious, and I'm not funny in the least in my house. So,
hey, just so you know, it's not just the kids. Mrs. Freeman thinks Tyler Gould is funny.
What's important?
Well, I will. Again, I do want to hit Mike's question again, because I think that even though we spent 2 hours together, and some of us more than 2 hours together, that we could have kept going. We really could have kept going with all of you guys. There was just a lot to talk about. But is there anything that you thought after you got off, man, I would have loved to have said this thing, or this thing is important to me and I didn't get it out there? Alan Michael.
Yeah, so 2 episodes, I got pretty much everything out. We got it all out. So
like,
for
what's
me,
this guy got to say?
Yeah, what else I got? It's not so much as what I left, or like what I said, or what I didn't have to say. It's my hope that from everything we talked about, that I think we're all men of faith on here, and like I wish I could have emphasized my love and faith in Jesus Christ more. Because that's the one thing that's been central to all the experiences that I've had. And I think we alluded to it, but I wish I would have been more direct and emphatic towards my love for him.
Well, I feel like that came across pretty good, Alan Michael. And in fact, I'm looking at a text that I got that says, keep the episodes coming. My favorite Alan Michael is going to be hard to beat. I look forward to Mondays. So there you go. I think that there's some, and I could tell you, if I looked back and pulled up all the Facebook messages that I've received and the text messages that I've gotten and the emails that we've received, every one of you people have commented on different parts of yours. Stephen, I got a text message. I can't even remember who texted me, and they said, Stephen Mitchell is the greatest. I laughed, I cried, and I learned something. That's a direct quote right there. So
hey, I don't want to get political, but I got a text saying Stephen Mitchell for president. And right now, why not?
Yeah, you got my vote, man.
That's all I'm going to say. That's all I'm going to say.
Toby, talk to me. What was there anything that you felt like, because it's interesting. So one of our guests who's not here tonight, couldn't make it tonight. He's in the Republic of Georgia. Okay. On the other side of the world, right? And when we were doing prep for the show, he's our only guest that had us read a disclaimer, right, Mike? He works for the government. We had to read a disclaimer that these were the views of him and not of the federal government, and blah blah blah, right? And so that was interesting. But he was concerned about how things would be if he would misspeak, if he would be misrepresent himself, if he, and he had these kind of concerns. And to Mike's point earlier, and to Quinn's point, I told him, I said, at the end of the day, if we're true to who we are, right, and we speak from our heart, the worst thing that's going to happen is that you're going to have a record that your kids are going to be able to hear, hopefully at a time when they need to hear it, that your grandkids are going to be able to hear. I mean, think about that. Like, this will go on forever, right? And generations will be able to listen to your voice and hear your testimonies of faith and hear your experiences. And I can tell you, right, we all know in this room as we sit here, we know hard things come, and we know they're going to hit us right between the eyes, right? And the large proportion of the time that we spent together, we talked about how do we get past those hard things? What do we do to get on the other side of them and learn something from them and move past them and be better? And I love the idea that someone, not just tomorrow listening to this, but in 10 years and in 15 years will stumble across this, and they'll be in the middle of their own difficult time and say, you know what? I just listened to Gavin Spencer. I just listened to Rajiv. I just listened to Nick, and I can get on the other side of this and I can be okay. And that to me is real. And you should be excited about that for sure. Just excited about what you've done. So there you go.
On that, that is a great point, Tyler. And I had a bunch of family just go overboard with hearing those stories again. But I've had some family members, let's call them pre-Christians, that when I asked them, did you get a chance to listen? And I'd be interested in you guys. Did you get a chance? And it was just like casual saying hello to this close relative. Did you get a chance to, and again, he's a pre-Christian. Did you get a chance to listen to the episode? And he said, I started to listen to it, but I already know how you feel about God. And then he changed the subject. Well, you know what? Did you guys ever have any of that kind of feedback where it was like, okay, we're talking about the positive thing. You're going to come at it 10 years later, but you've got some family members right now that you don't mess with. I already know, what you're going to get into that. And boy, there's silence and you don't hear back from them and you don't want to ask them if they heard it. Anyway, that's a part of the package.
That is part of the package for sure.
That's part of the package.
100%.
Did you guys that?
Anybody else have that experience?
I would just say to Stephen, to that, props to you for them already knowing.
Yeah, absolutely. That's
right?
a big
because
deal.
I think that's one of the lessons I get when I hear this. It's like, do my kids know these stories?
Oh.
Like, what am I doing to live out loud without this thing in my face? Because I don't really feel like this is taking a chance. I don't really feel like this is exercising a lot of courage, because it's an indirect, it might land in someone, right? But I'm not going up to a guy on the street and ministering to him. Right. And
but you're ministering when you are commenting back on your own family, on your own boxes, as you said, that you check off that you're laying that out.
I know, but props to you for laying it out outside of this venue.
And I think Mike and I have had this discussion before. It's like we've all been in different involved in our faith, and we've shared those our thoughts and our deep feelings about God but I always tell Mike, I want to be better about sharing that with my own family, right? I want to make sure that they're hearing that from my lips, that it's that I'm laying that out there. The same way you guys laid out your stories in the podcast, I want to be laying that out to my own children. So they look at me and say, I know exactly where my dad is coming from because he tells me. And I would prefer that too. See, when you say, well, they said, well, I already know, I love that thought because I think that's important, right? I mean, I've shared before that with Mike, I have some of my own family that we don't see eye to eye on certain things, and they'll call me and ask me for advice. And I'm like, I'm a one-trick pony. I can tell you one way that works for me. And then I know that'll work for you. But
that's funny because I just dropped off my daughter in college, and one of the last things I said to her, I said, hey, Grace, if you call me at noon with a problem, the answer is Jesus. If you call me at midnight with a problem, the answer is Jesus. I got one answer, right?
Yeah.
So just be prepared for it.
You talked about the indirect nature of this and how that might, I don't know, I can't remember the word you used, but it takes a little more courage maybe to approach someone face to face. But I think there are a lot of people out there that don't want to have a face to face, and it makes them uncomfortable, and they don't necessarily want to have a discussion about it. But the fact that this is out there for them to listen to in the comfort of their own space at their own time, I think is really important, because there are a lot of people that we try to have direct conversations with that just don't want to have that conversation. They just say no. But if it's indirect and they don't have to feel pressure, and they can listen to your story because they're curious, I think it might be, you might be able to argue that more people listen to your story, or more people listen to your beliefs that way. And it's harder to know. Like, I don't know. I have no idea, even if my own, family has listened to that. I don't know, because they might not necessarily want to have that conversation. I mean, I think they have, but honestly, I maybe like 10 people that I know for sure listened, and the rest, if anyone else did, which I hope, but no one said anything, that's okay. That's okay.
Yeah, but two thoughts come to my mind as you say that. To Steve, in Steven's episode, I say, why aren't more people trying? Right? Why aren't more people trying? And I think your answer was too much trouble.
Yep.
Right? Too much trouble. And then on the indirect, I think as I'm listening to you, Nick, I think of my own experience. I was keeping things in my heart way before I actually committed to make a change. Right? I would hear something and be like, and I'd put it back there. Almost like, right, Mary put those things as those developments leading up to the birth of the Savior, she just kind of put those things in her mind. And it was a very indirect, until eventually it got to a point where I got to do something, right? So maybe you're right. Maybe drop by drop. It's interesting because we call it the richest men in town. It's a very clear demographic that we're going for. My mother-in-law sits on the edge of her seat every Monday night at 6:00, anxiously waiting for the next episode. I've got a coworker. I've got a female coworker that calls it the Mike and Tyler show, and she listens to it walking around. And so the females. But I have a former student. He's like 22, just got married, and he's our biggest fan. Listens to all of them, right? So they come in all different walks, all different shapes and sizes, but they're listening.
I think as you guys go forward too, and you're gonna have to reach outside of your own circles too, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
I'm out.
And,
this is all the friends we have right here.
Run out of friends.
Honestly, the fact that you guys have this many close friends is impressive.
Well, I think any other close friends see how we treat our close friends, and they're not signing up.
Yeah, they're out.
As you guys go forward and you're looking for people to talk to, and one of the thoughts I had was, there's so many people that you might not know something about them that stands out, but I think anybody that you guys spend 2 hours with, you're going to find some incredible things, and there's going to be nuggets there of beauty and lessons. And what it teaches me is that, just that time, spending some time with someone and really asking them questions, learning how to do that, because nowadays, with all the texting and all the stuff that we don't do anymore as far as conversation goes, I mean, I think all of us are probably at least in a generation that had to do that at one time or another. But, the conversations I've had are richer than before, because sometimes you just talk about what you need to, and you might have a conversation about one particular thing that you need to talk about. But if I'm sitting there having lunch with somebody and I'm, spending an hour, that's pretty amazing. And I should feel at the end of every conversation I have that an hour wasn't enough. So, we talk about 2 hours. 2 hours really isn't that much time at all. And for someone to listen to a podcast for 2 hours, yeah, that takes time. But it also, I think, is a beautiful lesson on how to have a conversation with somebody. And I think that's something that we all need.
I like that, Nick. I think that there's, I agree with you, Nick. I mean, I just believe, and I think I've always felt this way, that, everybody has something to say, and there's important things, and we certainly can't judge a book by its cover, right? I mean, if that was the case, and maybe that's good, right, Mike? People can't see our faces, so we get a little more listeners that way. Is that?
Well, it's funny that you mention a book. It's funny that you mention a book, because as we talk about this podcast, and as we talk about this podcast becoming a community or something that lives a little beyond just, a recorded Zoom conference, man, I would love to reach out to you guys to continue having you be a voice and sharing the lessons that life has taught you. We're even considering having guest authors and bringing that blog back from the dead, guys, and sharing out some of those things. And I was going for a walk the other day, and I thought, man, it would be amazing if I could have your stories in that book format, right? Like maybe get a transcription service and take your content and do something with it, because that's dreaming a little bit, but it really is back to trying to be true to the gift that you guys gave us.
Yeah, and I think too. Today I finished listening to the latest episode that we just put up, and the thought I've had after every time I've listened to each of you is that I swear I just think, like, that was so good. I need these guys to be back and talking again, because
I think every episode you say, "Hey, we're going to do this again. You need to come back."
I just can't get enough. There's just so much there. And I hope that you feel proud of what you said and what you contributed, because I can tell you, there's the comments. I wish I had a transcript of those that I could just read to you right now, of the ways that you've touched other people's lives. I mean, it's powerful. And we think like, hey, we just got on this podcast for a couple hours, we did our thing, we walked away, and that was great, right? But the reality is, this thing's out there. And I, like Mike, I have people that text me. I got a text a couple weeks ago, and they said, "I'm all caught up on the episodes. You need to do some more content," right? And I'm like, 2 hours a week, man, that's a lot. I don't know how much more we can do, but that, I think that speaks to the importance of the messages that you guys have brought to the table. And I think Alan Michael talked about this earlier. Like, everybody's experience was so unique, right? We get Rajiv riding a bike for how many years, Rajiv? Across Europe.
It wasn't years. It was like 4 months.
4 months. All right. He rode a bike across Europe. Right. We talk about Alan Michael and the sojourn in New Jersey. Right. And
Alan, Alan Michael, I just want to make sure that we give props. The way you handled that difficult topic was admirable. And we've had people, divorce and church aren't necessarily comfortable terms that live together. And we've had people reach out to us that are in that situation, and they really found comfort in sharing that, the way you shared that story of just, sometimes we do it right and it doesn't work out right. Right? The process. Yeah. So I just I wanted to make sure that that you knew that your words really did provide some comfort to some people going through a hard time.
Amen.
Required listening, man. I mean, this is like, you guys are raising my kids, for crying out loud.
Hey, is it fair? Because it has evolved. Is it fair if I throw out, because some of our most recent episodes have actually included some new questions? Is it fair if I threw it out there? And I'm just going to throw it out there.
It's fair. Throw it, man.
And if you guys, whatever you guys, whoever feels moved to do something with the question, that the last episode with Chad Richards, man, Chad's story is amazing. I think we may have asked you a variation of this question, right? Looking back on your 18-year-old self, what's different between the life that you dreamed at 18 and the life you're living now? What we asked him was, if you could go back to that guy, what would you say? If you could go back to your 18-year-old self, what would you tell that person?
God isn't a cosmic killjoy. God is not a cosmic killjoy. Because being raised in the church and first starting in the church when I was hearing Latin. Anyway, that's what I would go tell them. It's about a personal relationship with the God that created you. I mean, just to throw that seed on that 18-year-old that put racing stripes on a Rambler, for gosh sakes, with no reverse and no second gear. I had racing stripes on it, but just have me come back and tell him that. You know, it's not, Josh McDowell has always said something that has always hung with me that I think I shared in the podcast, but rules without relationship equal rebellion. That's what I heard about God, man. He was up there with lightning bolts. Oh, come on. Are you kidding? Are you kidding? Not again. Do you realize? Oh, my heavens, man. Oh, that's baggage. That's baggage. And the final analogy that I came up with, sometimes when I came from Sunday service and it was walking distance from our house to the church, I came up with the metaphor that my pants or my shirt got caught on the doorknob of the church, and by the time I got home, I was completely naked. Meaning that all that I had learned or tried to learn in the church, I was completely naked, and by the time I walked home, I completely forgot everything.
Yeah.
Anyway.
That's
great advice.
That's actually reminding me of a conversation that I just had with somebody talking about having an experience with the religion versus having an experience with the gospel.
I like that question. Who else wants to take a stab at that?
Yeah, what would you say to that 18-year-old self? Or pick a time, right? I mean, doesn't have to be 18. Just a younger version of you. What would you tell them? That's why we give you the doc with a couple days notice.
Maybe some elevator music in between.
Yeah.
I think for me, it's just the thought of, and I may have even alluded to it in my interview. I can't remember what I said, but just the fact that things don't always go the way that you think they're going to go, but that's okay. You know, you can't plan for everything. You can't plan it out perfectly, but things turn out somehow. And, you know, we're going to go through hard stuff. We're going to go through good stuff. We're going to go through bad stuff, but that's what life's all about. So don't fret about it too much.
Fret a little. We want them to fret a little, not a lot.
Yes, not a lot.
Not too much.
I like that.
So the things that I would tell myself back when I was younger, 18, 17, 16, are actually things I find myself telling my kids almost weekly, right? Because because they're usually regrets, and I don't want my kids to have those same regrets. And most of it usually revolves around how to treat people. You know, like there are things that I said or did to friends or people that weren't my friends when I was, young and dumb, that I regret saying, I regret doing. And I usually find myself telling my kids, hey, you know, I know that kid might be a little bit annoying. I know that kid might be a little bit, difficult to be around, but there's a reason for that, and just be kind. And that's what I wish I would have told myself, or, you know, I wish I would have known and done when I was young. So I hopefully am sharing that well enough and often enough with my children.
One of the things that I probably would go back and tell myself, I used to have a football coach, an old guy. You could tell he'd been around, had a bunch of wisdom. He would always say, keep the main thing the main thing. Like, as long as you keep the main thing, you'll be okay. And I feel like if I could go back and tell my younger self that a lot of those things that I had kept the main thing weren't the main thing. Like, those things aren't that important. Like, those things don't matter. And I wish I had a better grasp of what in my life would become the main thing, which is Christ for me. I would go back and tell that person to make the main thing the main thing and keep the main thing the main thing. Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. There was a time when I was called to serve as a teacher in church, and I would actually start my lesson that way. Like, hey, can we make sure that whatever is said here, I want to keep the main thing the main thing. And the main thing is that we look to Jesus Christ for remission of our sins. We can get lost in the weeds in some of these great stories from the Old Testament or some of these great things that we look, but they all are types and shadows, and they point to the main thing. So let's keep the main thing the main thing. Great advice. You have that Robert Frost quote, Tyler, or you want me to get it?
If you've got it handy, go for it.
All right. So I think this is appropriate to the question that we asked. At his 80th birthday party, Robert Frost said this: in 3 words, I can sum up everything I've learned about life. It goes on. In all the confusions of today, with all our troubles, with politicians and people slinging the word fear around, all of us become discouraged, tempted to say this is the end, the finish. But life, it goes on. It always has. It always will. Don't forget that. Love that, right? Love that. Life goes on.
Yeah, it's kind of Quinn's advice, right, to his younger self. It'll be okay, right? It's going to be okay. We're going to go through stuff, and it'll be okay. And think about how much time we've all, probably all of us, right, have spent stressing out and worrying and losing sleep. I think Nick and Mike and I talked about logging 4 hours a night, right? So I think that if we had that understanding, it'd be okay. Boy, life would be a little bit easier.
You know, as I think about that question, as I think everybody probably has seen Back to the Future, right? You know what happens when you go back and tell your younger self from certain situation. But no, there's so much that I know that I've experienced that I just wasn't paying attention to. I think if there's anything that I wish I would have done better, it's to pay more attention to what's going on and the experiences that I was actually having. Because I think sometimes, you know, as your younger self, you're just going through life and you don't realize how valuable the experience is. You know, that experience of just life. And I think it took me a long time to figure out, and I still haven't figured it out completely, but to be really grateful for that time and grateful for every experience. And there's so much I just don't even remember because I wasn't paying attention. You know, when you're talking about this being recorded forever too, you know, I think that's important. And I think we should do more of that, especially in the technology age, you know, videoing our children and interviewing them while they're young. Going through that process and really, really getting to know them and giving them something to look back on. I think that ties to it too.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah.
How about you, Rajiv? Come on. What would you tell yourself?
You know, this is all really good stuff. And I think for me, looking back, I think being intentional about stuff, you know, I think it's so easy to drift in life, you know, and I look back and I see, especially, you know, at that age, there were things that I wasn't intentional about, you know, and I think it's so easy to drift and I think to go downstream and just, you know, go with the flow. And I think just to be intentional about, you know, where you want to go and, you know, and then pick that point and then walk in that direction, you know, but I think intentionality I think it's, it's really, really important, and I think in that whole thing with experiences, I think the whole idea of being present in the moment and, and appreciating whatever you're in, I think that's another form of intentionality, is just saying, hey, that whatever's going on is for a reason and for a purpose, and just, I still am intentional in what I'm going for.
So he just teed up another quote. I got to share this one. We good, Tyler?
Yeah. Go for it.
I think you shared this with me. So the cool thing about having this episode is we've been looking back on just the pre-work going into your episodes, a lot of the text exchange back and forth of people that listen to you. You sent this a while back, Tyler, but it goes right with what Rajiv and Nick just shared. The Dalai Lama, when asked what surprised him most about humanity, answered, man. Because he sacrifices his health in order to make money. Then he sacrifices money to recuperate his health. And then he's so anxious about the future that he does not enjoy the present. The result being that he does not live in the present or the future. He lives as if he's never going to die, and then dies having never really lived.
Oh my.
Right? And that's so like what Rajiv, just that intentionality and being present with the people. Our little kids grow up. They just do. And the cool thing about each of you came into our lives at a particular time, but overall, Tyler and I were going to be able to look back, and this thing was a river running through our life. Right now, we're talking about kids going to college. Your daughter just came home from a mission, right? In 4 months, what are we talking about? But the idea is, are we stuck in living in the future and letting the present just go right by? Are we stuck in the past with regret, or are we right here, right now with the people? Because one of the things this podcast project has taught me is the people I have in my life are not there by accident. There is no accident meeting Rajiv, and Rajiv meets Stephen, and through Rajiv, I meet Stephen. There's no accident that Tyler leaves Reading, moves to Chula Vista, and meets Alan Michael Boston. There's no accident that Nick Anderson spent some time in Reading, made a connection with Tyler, and here we are, right? And so I really think that now it's just a matter of, if I'm going to get to episode 660, which I want to do, I better have eyes wide open, right?
Hey, Mike, I love that thought, and I want to talk about that for a second. But Gavin is the lone man who didn't answer that last question, and there's no way he's walking away from that without answering it, man. I'm not gonna let that happen.
That one's pretty easy, I think, for me, because this is one of those things I guess regret or just wish I would have been when I was younger, and even today. But I wish that I were service oriented. Like I was the guy, be that guy. I wish I were that guy that was always helping other people. That guy that always kind of got up when need be. You have some students at school that every time you need something, they jump up off their chair and they help you, and you love those kids. That's what I want my kids to be. That's what I want to be. Maddie crashed our truck in the side of the road. Not a big deal, but popped both of the tires on one side. That was a problem. I didn't have another car to take care of it. And who showed up at my door? Brad Husky. Brad Husky took me down to Les Schwab. We had to wait an hour and a half to get 2 new tires. We had to drive back to our truck. He helped me put the tires back on. And then I had to go back to Les Schwab to get 2 more new tires for the thing. But who was there? Some guy that is always thinking about serving others. And I wish I were that guy.
But Gavin, aren't you that guy now? I mean, I got to tell you something. Being over at Sequoia teaching drama and knowing that they ended up with Gavin Spencer, I mean, it was such an honor. So for a guy that has done so much to the kids that you took from me and accelerated, you're doing more serving than you absolutely understand. I mean, that is service, sir, with great quality, especially in the shoes of Ken Putnam, and you're going to try and fill that out? No, I mean, that's the truth from my heart. What those kids came back with as a result of working with you, Gavin, that's service. And you can't, just let me say for myself, when I go back there and say I should have, would have, could have, oh, give me a break. What am I doing now about it? And that's what I see in you. That's what I absolutely see in you. And I see it because I see it through the eyes of the kids that came back to me. Mr. Mitchell, guess what happened? Oh, man, come on.
Well, thank you, Stephen, for saying that, because Gavin Spencer would never, ever say that about himself.
Yeah,
well, I was just sitting on my hands the whole time.
No, it's fantastic.
I couldn't do it anymore.
I agree with you, Stephen, and I will say, Gavin. I've had the opportunity to spend time with Gavin in service, and he is unequivocally one of the most selfless people, and he sells himself short. But I think that's the interesting thing about this group of people, right?
This is a stacked Little League team.
This is. I feel like
all-star
team, man. It's
like the Avengers, and I'm that one guy with a bow and arrow.
Yeah, I'm like Jon Favreau over there, the chubby guy in the suit that does nothing, right? So, but listen, I think that when a common theme in every episode that we've done, that each of you have said, well, I wish, I would do this differently, and that's important. I really believe that's an important quality to have, to be able to be introspective and look at ourselves and say, what can I do to change, and what can I do to be better tomorrow than I was today? But this is the best group of people that I know, and I was talking to a lady who lived down here in San Diego for a while. Her husband was in the military. And just one of the greatest people, and they were moving with the military. And she said to me, listen, Tyler, you got to know, I'm a collector of people. I don't just discard the people that come into my life. And I thought, I told her, I said, I'm going to use that, and I'm going to steal that from you. So know that, because some of you guys, Stephen, I've never met you in person. But we're gonna have a burger one of these days for sure. But
Stephen's treat.
Yeah, that's right. And some of you guys I've met 10 plus years ago, right? And Rajiv, I haven't met you in person yet either. But I will say this: when we got done with Rajiv's episode, Rajiv got off the line, and I said to Mike, I've never met that guy, but I'll go to war for that guy. Amen. And so my point is, in rambling, is that this is a pretty darn good collection of people. And I'm hanging my hat that I've got one of the best collections of anybody. And I'm grateful for just the interaction and what you guys teach me on a regular basis.
Our lowest rated show is our own, Tyler. Iron sharpeneth iron.
Yeah.
Right. But that's how I feel tonight. That's how I feel hanging out with you guys. And I need to tell you this, and I'm going to tell you this with some sensitivity, because I received a text from somebody who was just, life's heavy. And this particular person talked about having to deal with the aftermath of a suicide, like physically cutting a person out of a tree. My answer to that person is Jesus. But the prescription that day was this podcast. I sent this podcast to that person to try to get through what that person is going through, because I can't imagine what that person's going through. Right? And it's awesome that we can be light, but life isn't light. It'd be great if every conversation was like, man, what do you mean you don't like hot dogs? Life isn't like that. There are heavy issues. There are hurting hearts. And it has been fantastic to be able to have this at my disposal when someone comes up and is having a hard day. So thank you for that.
Yeah, and I think if we can kind of circle back and bring this whole thing full circle yet again, right? We've always ended every episode of The Richest Men in Town with the question, what does it mean to you to be the richest man in town? And I would love to hear your thoughts today about what it means to you, again, to be the richest man in town. If it's the same thing, great. If it's changed, great. But those answers that you guys gave at the end of those episodes, every time Mike and we end that episode and we're just blown away by the things that we've learned from your comments. So maybe we can end tonight the same way we've ended together in our past moments together, with answering that question. What does it mean to you to be the richest man in town? And Stephen, why don't you start us off?
Lord God, I thank you for all these men, all the men that are not here that have been on this show. And I thank you for Mike and Tyler. And I thank you for all the men that will be on this show. And I just thank you. Rich is thankfulness. It's gratitude. I thank you for you starting this in the heart of Mike and Tyler. And I thank you for each one of these men. Because what the audience can't see is they can't see the eyes of these men. They can't see the stories of these men. Those that are quiet, they're not that quiet. They run deep. So I thank you for this opportunity, and bless this endeavor. Bless these men. Bless their families, Lord God, that we're all better by it, one step at a time. Integrity, Lord God, and we can live it out because we know you. We love you, and the Spirit drives us forward. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Now, who gets to follow that one, right? I mean, geez, for crying out loud. Thanks, Stephen. That was beautiful. Gavin, why don't you jump in there? Take a stab at it, my friend.
Yeah, that's a tough one. I guess I feel really lucky to have the family that I have. That supports me in, in my faith and in my career. But I'm so thankful for the career that I have, where I do have an opportunity to be a supportive adult role model for some of these kids, especially the ones that really need it. And I feel blessed to have music in my life and to be able to use that to, in some way, shape or form, make a difference in people's lives. And I love my friends. I have great friends. I mean, I like to, we try to be tough and manly, athletic old guys, but we don't share our feelings too much. But it's nice to have a place where you feel safe to share inner thought, your innermost sort of feelings and heavy things. And I appreciate having you guys around.
Love it. Thanks, Gavin.
Yeah.
Quinn, you're on the hot seat, my friend.
I think mine's probably similar to what I had said in my session, was just really, being the richest man in town really is in understanding and acknowledgement of the blessings that I have, the blessings of good people that I'm around, wonderful wife who's supportive to me in all aspects of everything that I do. Grateful for kids, grateful for just a gratitude for the things that I enjoy in this life. I talked about, the opportunities to be creative and to build things and just to have a mind that takes me there. That's big for me. And it's just, just kind of recognizing the blessings that God has given me in my life, I think helps me to see where the richness comes from.
Rajiv, how about you?
Yeah, when you guys asked me that question, I talked about, family and friends and stuff. And I think after what's happened tonight, I think the richest man is somebody that actually listens to other people's stories. Because everybody, I think, Nick, you talked about it, but I think everybody has a beautiful story. And I think, I think the riches, like what you guys are talking about, when you talk about people's stories, I think that is where riches come, because we all have friends, we all have people around us, and Mike, we work with those high risk kids, those at risk kids, and they have these crazy stories, but there's beauty in that, and I think I think the more that I can be intentional about listening, intentionally listening to somebody's story and finding the beauty in it, and learning from it, I think makes me a rich person. So, the other stuff is all, yes, it's all there that makes you rich. But I think, again, I think it comes back to the value of people, how awesome everybody is, and, the Bible talks about, that God created each person in his image, that I think just really, really being intentional about that, going, hey, that, whoever this person is that has come in my path, that they have a beautiful story, and I can be so much richer if I take the time to listen to them. And I think that's something that, Mike and Stephen, Mike and Tyler, that you guys have done. And I think that's the riches is that, is that 2 hours of going into somebody's soul and finding that beauty in it, and everybody has beauty, and I think that, it just came, while everybody was talking right now, and I go, man, like, how much richer could I be if I took that into that word is the toughest thing for me to say, but how, if I'm intentional about that, how much richer can I be, and it's just, it doesn't have to be 2 hours, but just asking the right questions and actually getting to know somebody, and a lot of times, we, especially I think with our families, and I think you put people down, you for whatever reason, and you bring this prejudices and you do all this stuff. But at the end, we each of us has, a beauty. Life it's a gift, and we all have, I think the way we were created, there was beauty in that gift, and I think just understanding, realizing that, I think, and if I did that more, like, oh my goodness, like, how rich could I be if I was just intentional about the people that came into my life and I tried to understand their story. So,
Amen.
A great answer.
I agree. Toby.
So I'm sitting here tonight with 4 of the closest friends that I've ever had, and then also with several other men that I don't know, but I look up to, and you guys make me feel rich. There's no question that being here with you and these close friends that I haven't felt this rich in a long time, to be honest. And it's your stories, it's your kindness, it's the people you want to be, that lifts me up. And as I've been sitting here thinking about this, there's, this isn't the only great men in the world. This is a very, very, very small sample of that. And this gives me hope. This gives me a lot of hope for the world, for the future, and I'm grateful for that. I'm of course rich because of my family. I have 4 beautiful girls and a beautiful wife, and without them, my life would almost seem meaningless. So they make me rich. There's so many things. There's so many things I'm thankful for, and the great thing that I've been thinking about of these riches is, to me, they're eternal. The things that are temporal, they don't last. Those things, my cars, whatever, those things don't make me rich. It's the things that are lasting that make me rich. So I'm grateful for you guys. Thank you for your stories and for sharing them.
Love that answer. Thanks, Toby. Yeah. Nick.
A lot of stuff's going through my head because I've had more time to think about this than anyone else. But
Michael.
Amen to all the things that have been said. But it's Stephen, when you started praying, it was pretty amazing. Just just how spontaneous that is, and obviously, living in that presence of mind, or that state of being when, you're so close to spiritual things that you just break out into prayer, I think is an example of, I think, what it means to really be richer than many others. It's amazing how many people go through hard things just like we have and don't have hope and don't have a place to go and take that pain and they just deal with it. And I think this is actually a hopeful thing, because the opportunity is to help other people find that faith and find that state of being where they can be positive, where they can see past the immediate issues that they're going through, where they can see that there's purpose in, freedom and liberty and agency, and that there's value in hard things. And so those are the things that are crossing my mind right now. I'm so grateful to have faith in Jesus Christ. And, there's no doubt that even people I know that don't have faith in Jesus Christ per se, but have a faith in God, it's amazing the difference of a life that you'll live when you understand, to whatever level, that there's a purpose to all this. And so for me, just having that knowledge, and then to have others around me, including all of you, and the way that you've blessed my life with your faith, and the way that you've handled your lives, and the way you continue to handle your lives, is very inspiring. And so I am extremely blessed and extremely rich because I'm surrounded by people like that. And not everyone can say that. And it's actually, it's really sad that some people distance themselves from others that have faith, and they just don't know what they're missing. And so being a part of something like this adds to that richness as well, because I really do think that this is something that's blessing a lot of people, and will continue to bless even more people, especially with the hope that they'll hear in the conversations that you guys are having with people. So it's a great honor to be part of this.
I love it, Nick. Alan Michael, give us some thoughts.
Yeah. So like Nick, I've had a lot of time to think about stuff. I think the last time you guys left me with this question, I talked about just love, and like that's what really makes us rich. And I can't say that for me it's changed from love, but I can add a component to it, something that I've learned tonight that I never really connected. And all of Christendom, the thing that binds us together is the knowledge of the sufferings of Christ, right? Like, you talk to any Christian, that's the thing that's going to tie Christian to Christian, regardless of what denomination. But it's that knowledge of something that Christ went through that was hard, a tough time, that fosters love in us. And one of the things that you guys have going with the podcast is that people are okay with talking about hard things. And it kind of illuminated in me, like, that's why I feel like I know Rajiv and Stephen, just with the podcast that I've listened to, is because they're talking about something hard, and it creates in me a love for them. And so, like, to become rich, you have to live in love, but you can't really live in love if you don't have a knowledge of someone. Like, the more we know about people and the struggles, the more we get to know them, the greater our love is for them. And so for me, being the richest man in town is living in love, but with that, you got to have a willingness to understand people. And as you share what you've been through, and as you hear others share the struggles that they've been through, it does what Christ does, which is bind us together through love because of the sufferings of mortality.
Love it. Let's put Mike Freeman on the spot. Why not, right? Mike, why don't you take a stab at that question? You're one of the richest men I know, so lay it on us.
Let me just share this. I believe the most satisfying and memorable accomplishments in our home, in the church, in our jobs, in professions, and in our communities will be the product of this important spiritual pattern. Simple, and small things. We should find great comfort in the fact that ordinary people who faithfully, diligently, and consistently do simple things that are right before God will be blessed in extraordinary ways. I know that to be true. I often joke that my faith is a simple faith. It has very few moving parts. I'm constantly trying to simplify my life so that it can be about the things that matter most. I think that the challenge is there's an adversary out there, that there is a force that is striking at the heart of what this is about, right? There is a resistance, and it's important that we band together as friends. It's important that we try to get more people to see what this life is about. I would love to have a bumper sticker right now that says George Bailey wins. Right? In the end, that's what it's about. It's about being hugged by your children. It's about being loved and trusted by your wife. Maybe I should switch that. Trusted and loved by your wife. It's about being a contributing member of a community. But really, it comes down to simple, small things like a prayer. And Nick, that's Stephen Mitchell, man. That's Stephen Mitchell.
I didn't know prayers were allowed, or I would have busted one out.
No, that is that.
Hey. I didn't pray, man. I've been studying the Book of Ruth, and I thought in that prayer.
No, that is Stephen. Your heart. That is 100% right, Rajiv.
Yep.
I just got to tell you, though, I mean, when I finished that prayer, I thought that's what's necessary is a podcast called The Richest Women in Town, The Richest Woman in Town, because everything that I went on, and I'm done speaking here, but if you guys heard my podcast about my mother, see, I'm only rich because of my mom, because of my wife, because of all these women that really, when I'm by myself, like I said, I just keep beating myself with reeds outside, and then I come back in again and try, so.
Every one of us, every one of you guys have spoke of, every one of you in your episodes or tonight have spoke of the women in your life.
Well, I just want to make that clear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think there's recurring themes, right? And Mike and I talk about this a lot. Everybody has a different story. Each of you has told a different story, but there's recurring themes in those stories, right? We talk a lot about mothers is huge, right? We talk about remembering, right? And the importance of remembering who we are, where we came from, where we're going, and what it takes to get where we're going, right? That's an important element to this. So I'm just going to echo Alan Michael, right? We live in love. I love you guys. I'm grateful for this group of, we got 8 guys that I've collected and I'm hanging on to. And for me, this 8 contributes to me feeling like the richest man in town, and that's for sure. So we appreciate you guys. We love you. And this is not the last time, right? We will be calling on you again and again. So we love you guys. Thanks for being here tonight.
You're like the founding fathers of the Richest Men in Town podcast. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your time. Thank your families for loaning us some more time. And thank you for living the lives that you live. Keep going, brethren. Keep doing it.
Thanks a lot.
Will do. Appreciate you guys having us on.
Guys.
Right. Good night, you guys.
Good night.
Good night.
Good idea, Ernie. A toast to my big brother George, the richest man in town.